Lee at Iridium. Look at the crew I've got with me today. I've got Jan, I've got Mark Clower, and I've got Darren O'Sullivan from Sleeve Saturday. How you doing, guys?
All right, boys.
Great. Morning.
Right, good. So we're going to do something called Desert Island Albums. Now, the title of this, we was going to do a perfect albums show, and then we thought that's a bit, I don't know, to get a perfect album, what do you call a perfect album? It's one of them hard things to say in it. It's got to be absolutely 10 out of 10, top notch. So you probably could come up with a couple of them, but it's not easy. So Desert Island Albums, what that means is you're stranded on a desert island. You've obviously got a solar powered phone or something, or CD player or whatever it is, because it's always sunny, isn't it? So you're going to be charged up all the time. And you can have the albums you want to be with you. So they might not be perfect albums, but they're the ones you really want to keep with you. And they're the only things you can listen to all the time for the rest of your life. So,
you see, this is what you get on Iridium Rock and Metal Reviews. You don't just get the albums that you want to listen to. Lee talks about the bloody mechanics of how you'll actually do it on the island. I mean, what more do you want?
Well, I'm doing that in case someone in the comments says, well, what about electricity? And then I've covered it now, haven't I? So there you go. Yeah. So what we thought of is, how many do we do? We don't want to carry on doing this because we'll be up to show 50. And, you know, we mentioned like 10 albums a show. And in the end, we'll have 5,000 albums or whatever that we'll take with us. So we're going to go with 10, but we're going to do 5 for this episode. So no mention of honourable mentions. We're just going to do 5 each, and then we're going to do another episode another time. So 10 albums. Ain't easy, is it?
No, it's not. I'll tell you what, you know, I'll kind of be upfront just before we get into it. From my point of view, you know, I could come to this and go, you know, as usual, I could go, you know, stuff I love. Huey Lewis and the News, obviously I'd bring that. Foreigner 4, obviously I'd bring that. Vital Signs, I bring that. But what I was trying to do for my list, and I don't know what way you guys done, is I tried to stick clear of or steer clear a little bit of my usual, what I'll come up with, a journey or whatever, and just for me anyway, try to come up with other albums, kind of rock albums, soft and hard rock that I like, and maybe something a bit different from me, as opposed to me repeating myself, if you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, I said to this before you came on, I said, let's sort of, it'd be interesting to find out how we actually chose them. So I tried to choose wherever I can, even though I'm a metal, I just love metal, as you know, heavy rock and metal. I tried to vary it a bit because I was thinking, if I'm on this desert island, I might want a bit of, you know, something a bit harder, or no, I might want something a bit softer. So I tried to think, I'm probably thinking about it too much, but I tried to think, you know, I might not fancy that because I fancy something a bit heavier. And it does. Over the 2 episodes, you might find it spanning quite a few years, newer albums. So yeah, I didn't want to go fully in the past. So I've got some newer sort of stuff as well. That's how I did mine anyway. So what about you guys? How about you, Mark? How did you choose them?
Well, I mean, I kind of took the easy way out, and for the most part, I picked albums that I've just loved my whole life. You know, a lot of these I've heard a lot, but I'm not to the point of being sick of them yet. They still sound fresh. They still hold up over time. There's a lot of albums that came out, you know, in my younger years that did not hold up well. They sound very dated now when you listen to them, or, you know, they don't stick with you. The ones I picked are either just some of my favorite albums or some that I do have a couple that are fairly recent. We'll get into here in a little bit, but for the most part, they're near perfect albums for me. Yeah. Like we were saying, there's so few perfect 10s. Even the best albums usually have one throwaway track. Yeah, so it's hard to say an album's perfect, but most of the ones I've picked, the songs for the most part from start to finish are songs that I want to hear.
Yeah.
With, you know, a rare exception, one I might skip over. But,
cool. How about you, Jan? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a mixture of all of that, really. I mean, I've tried to pick out albums that, like you, if I actually really, really was stuck on a desert island, would I want to listen to these albums? And what would I want to listen to one day? What might not be the same as the next day? So I don't want like 10 Iron Maiden albums, for instance, or Slayer albums, because you want something different here. So I picked all sorts of things as a collective of the two shows. So I picked, because I had 7. I didn't know how many we're doing, so I just picked out 5 of my 7 or 8 I've got at the moment. I'll add a couple more for the next show. But yeah, a lot of the albums are brilliant. Like some of the ones we discussed last night. Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction is a fantastic classic album and deserves to be called that. And every song on it is absolutely fantastic. But do I want to be stuck on a desert island with it? No, I've heard it too much. So that sort of thing for me.
The only thing with me as well, I chose a couple of newer ones, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about like the older ones. I know that I still found sound fresh, but the newer ones I've chosen, will they still sound fresh? I don't know, because I haven't had enough time with them, I suppose. But anyway, we're thinking about it too much. I'm gonna go round. How I can see it on the screen, it might be different to you. Jam, I'm going to have you go first with your first choice, mate.
Oh, okay, right. Well, I know Darren might not like this one because it's the so-called grunge era, and it's Pearl Jam and 10. Now,
I'm surprised.
I have a problem with the grunge term in general, because most genres of metal and rock described by the style of music, so thrash and all that. Whereas grunge isn't a style of music, as far as I'm concerned. It's a movement and a what's the word? I suppose attitude and a time and a place. Obviously, most of the grunge bands were Seattle, but the big four: Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Soundgarden, and Pearl Jam don't sound anything like each other. It's not a style of music, and certainly Alice in Chains and certainly Soundgarden, when they released Bad Motorfinger, are fucking heavy. They're proper metal bands, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, Pearl Jam aren't in that category, but So for me, to that period of time, I hate Nirvana when they come out and everybody started listening to it, the same as everybody else did. It did sort of change metal, probably for a better thing for afterwards. It sort of reset it. But Pearl Jam, absolutely fantastic, and I loved them at the time.
Well, that's a pure rock and roll album, that Pearl Jam. There's guitar solos all over the place. It's not like Nirvana, where it was just a load of like punk music. That was a pure rock and roll album, and it was probably, we were talking about Guns N' Roses last night. That was probably that band, Pearl Jam, were very sort of close to that, because Guns N' Roses were a rock and roll album, wasn't that?
Of course it was. Band. Yeah.
And Pearl Jam were. It was really rock and roll, bluesy, that sort of stuff going on. So yeah,
the big fan of Neil Young as well, aren't they? And not that it sounds like that. And the album is just atmospheric. I mean, the start of the album is like a sort of a instrumental bit. It sounds almost like, to me, like you're in a jungle sort of thing. And at the end of the last song, it goes back into it. It's not a concept album at all, but that goes into the first song, goes into Once. And every song on it is fantastic. And I don't know if you've never heard this album, but it doesn't deserve to be lumped in the grunge era. It's a fantastic album on its own. I mean, I don't like what they turned into. I don't like that. When they went into that Neil Young and they started playing with him and all that, I didn't like what they turned into. But that first album was pretty special. Yeah. I was lucky enough to finally go and see him only in 2014 and Milky's Bowl. I mean, they don't like playing over here. I don't know what it is about them. They don't seem to like playing in England, but I finally saw him, and some of the songs on this album are brilliant. I mean, Porch and Release, to name the big ones, obviously Jeremy and Alive and all that on there, but probably my favourite ever song in the whole world, Black, is on this album. So if you guys haven't heard Black by Pearl Jam, just have a listen to it. It is absolutely fantastic. So
I bought that.
That's all I'll say about that.
That was on our ballad show. I bought Black.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Great choice, mate. All right, cool. We go to Mark next.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get the most obvious one out of the way. Obvious for me, anyway. We talked about this one last night. You're probably sick of hearing about it. But Black Sabbath, Eternal Idol. I've probably listened to it thousands of times. So I guess I've overexposed myself, but none of these songs have ever been played on the radio. They've never been played. Well, I started to say they've never been played on MTV even, but there was a video for The Shining that got a little bit of airplay back in the day. But this to me is a near perfect album. I love every song on it. So if I was stuck on Desert Island and had to listen to every song, there's nothing on it I would choose to skip over. It's got my favorite singer of all time on it, my favorite guitarist of all time on it. So I can't go wrong there. But like I said, this album is vastly unknown, even among a lot of so-called Sabbath fans. A lot of the Dio only or Ozzy only fans have never even heard this album and won't give it a chance. I think if they gave it a chance, they'd have a different opinion of it, or of the Tony Martin era in general.
Yeah.
Because his vocals are just from another planet. But anyway, like I said, that's one I definitely wouldn't mind being stranded with.
Yeah. Nah, cool
stuff.
It's good that Tony Martin gets a bit of love from you, mate, because like you said, I mean, there are fans out there, but obviously nowhere
few
near.
and far between.
Yeah. Okay, Darren, mate, what you got?
Yeah, it's interesting just listening to the lads, Lee. Where the original concept for the video was what's a perfect album, and I think we're kind of all in agreement that it don't exist. When
Very
trying to pick out the
yeah.
albums, so yeah, I kind of approach this almost as the 80-20 rule or the 70-30 rule, and kind of goes, if it's top heavy with enough songs, that's good enough for me to sit on a desert island.
Yeah.
And if 3 of the 10 songs are shit, I'm all right with that. So I'm going to go with Queen's 5th album, 1976, is A Day at the Races, which is a almost kind of like a part, I would say it's kind of like a part 2 to Night at the Opera, which came the year before. Almost kind of it's sonically, it's quite the same. I think its sleeve cover is quite similar as well. It's you could listen to them almost as a back-to-back, opus, let's say. And 2 of my favorite songs ever by Queen is on this album. That's why it would push it over the limit for me to be on my desert island. This Somebody to Love, which is just a beautiful, beautiful song. And Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy, which doesn't get mentioned too much in terms of Queen conversations, is also on this record. But one thing I would say as well is it's a record that kind of, if you're sitting there in that desert island underneath the palm tree with coconuts hitting you in the head, you want to have something that brings you on a journey through it. And you even get a little bit of Brian May in here. He sings on one of the tracks, quite a folky kind of song. But he wrote it, he sang it, and I think Brian May doesn't get enough love for his vocals sometimes. He didn't get a lot of chances on Queen albums, but he did on this one, on one of the songs, and for that reason, even with Brian May's vocal thrown in as well, that's why it'd be a Desert Island album for me.
Great choice, mate. I'm loving the difference in choices, though. It's brilliant. So, no,
Darren,
cool.
Darren, is there any other famous songs on that one? I'm not familiar with it.
Not really. You're kind of talking Somebody to Love and Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy would be kind of, if you're talking Queen's greatest hits, they'd be the two that'd be really in there. But I think Somebody to Love is probably my favorite. Certainly up there is in my top 3 maybe favorite songs from Queen. Just a beautiful, beautiful song.
Yeah, when they were great, mate. I loved Queen up to a point. I really did. That first few albums were absolutely fantastic. I've got to shut the door a second. I'll edit this out because I'm fucking freezing where I let the dog out. Hold on.
Jam, it's interesting what you were talking about there around grunge being, because I do slate grunge, but it's interesting your take on it, that you're right. It isn't all the same. It's a movement, and I haven't really. You don't hear people describe it that way too much. There's people like me who come on my videos and go, "Oh, grunge, I hate grunge," but to hear it described like that and go, "No, it's a movement," as opposed to a musical genre.
Yeah, it's probably the most varied. It's probably the most varied. I mean, if you say thrash, it all sounds very similar.
Yeah,
exactly. It's got that certain, but yeah, Alice in Chains sounded like fucking Black Sabbath. Pearl Jam sounded like a rock and roll band.
Yeah,
Soundgarden sound like a true metal band.
Yeah,
and Nirvana sound like a punk band. It is very varied.
I wasn't having a go at you, Darren. I know because Dom doesn't like grunge either. It was just
No. I know you weren't, and that's why it was
Yeah,
interesting the way you described, because you don't
It
hear
was.
that too often.
I've
As a
never heard
movement,
it.
as opposed to
I've
yeah.
never heard it said that before, and that did make
Yeah.
me think as well. So.
Most
Right.
subgenres of metal are to do with the music type, aren't they? Say grunge isn't. It's not, and I hate it. It's like Stone Temple Pilots supposedly sound like Pearl Jam. Sound nothing like fucking Pearl Jam as far as I'm concerned, and they're not from Seattle either.
Perhaps we do need a grunge show.
It needs love. I mean, you can't see my picture up here. I've got a picture of. It's got Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder, and Lane Staley, and forgotten his name, Soundgarden, Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant picture of all the grunge singers, half of them dead, unfortunately. Fucking hell, yeah. 3 of them dead. Shit, 3 of the 4, yeah. Sad, isn't it? But,
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Sorry about that. I was fucking freezing. I couldn't
Right.
concentrate. So, okay. Right, guys, my turn. So, I'm going to go the oldest to the newest in my.
okay.
This isn't my overall 10 oldest and newest. In this 5, I'm going my oldest and newest. Then I'm going to do it again for my second 5, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So,
Yep.
This might surprise some people, but it is a Dio album. That's probably why I got the shirt on. And it's Last in Line, the second solo album. So,
I expected Holy Diver.
yeah, Holy Diver is usually thought of as Dio's best album, the debut album. But for some reason, Last in Line is the one I feel like I want to play, and it feels fresher to me. I don't know why. I've heard both of them just as much, to tell you the truth. In fact, I think I got Last in Line before I got Holy Diver when I was a kid. So, and they both was just constantly played, put on mixtapes or whatever all them years ago. But Last in Line, for some reason, has stayed fresher for me. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. It's a little bit, I suppose, a tiny bit more commercial, or than Holy Diver, just a tiny bit. But they're both just so great. But Last in Line is just amazing. I love the title track. I love One Night in the City, a bit of a deeper cut there. Egypt, The Chains Are On. I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant album. Yet again, if you're talking perfect, it's very, you got Breathless, maybe ain't the best song, so there's even in all the Dio albums, I can't think of one that I would say was perfect, even with Dio albums, So, but Last in Line is my first choice. 1984, by the way. Yes, I said that.
We need to, I mentioned this last night, but we need to acknowledge again, today is the anniversary of Ronnie's death.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
But 11 years ago today, he passed away.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Still hard to believe it's been that long. It just, in my mind, it seems like it's been 3 or 4 years. It's been 11 years.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this before, about people passing away, artists passing away, and then gaining notoriety and fame even more, and they become like an icon. But if anyone ever deserved it, it would be Ronnie James Dio. There's nothing you could say, because he passed away, he's grown in notoriety. He just deserved everything he got. He was the best metal singer, in my opinion. So there you go.
Yep.
Last in Line, guys. Right. Round for the second round. Jan, what you got on your Desert Island solar playing CD player?
I think I need a record player for this one. Once again, you probably won't see this coming, and it's probably slightly outside the remit, but I've got for 1973, and this is a classic album.
Wow.
And it's one of the classic albums that actually deserves to be a classic album, and it is Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon.
I was thinking, I didn't recognise the. Obviously, that's a box set, I was saying, is it?
Yeah,
it's not the iconic cover. Yeah.
But it's I've got it on CD somewhere, but that's the vinyl, which obviously I would play, but I mean, yeah, it's definitely for me it deserves to be known as that's probably one of the biggest selling albums of all time, I think, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you may not like them. It's obviously proggy and all that, but I think this is a perfect album. for me. I don't think there's a bad song on here. It's obviously all linked together. With obviously the talking in between, which I think adds to it, and obviously On the Run goes into Great Gig in the Sky and all that. And it's just even the ones you hear all the time, Money and Time and all that, are still great songs. And I just love it. I mean, whether you're a Pink Floyd fan or not, I mean, they've done a lot of great albums. Medal's very, very highly underrated album. Brilliant album, I think. The Wall is good in places if you cut out a lot of there is a bit of filler in The Wall, I think. But and then obviously Wish You Were Here, of course, is another classic one. So yes, very good band. Brain Damage is my favourite song off Dark Side of the Moon, and I definitely would want this on a desert island, especially if I'd had a few fermented coconut juices to keep me going.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to have an opinion on Pink Floyd because I've had too much stick at the moment on my channel. So, what do you reckon, guys, of Pink Floyd?
Yeah, you know what, I'm with Jam on this. There's certain albums that, you know, whether you like them or not, Lee, you've got to. I like it, by the way, but whether you like it or not, you've got to respect it. Sometimes some albums are just iconic. You've got, you know, in the punk scene, you've got Nevermind the Bollocks. In the pop scene, you've got Michael Jackson's Thriller. Sometimes it just happens and it clicks, and an album is iconic for a reason. And that,
like the one behind you that I took a bit of stick for last night. You mean?
Exactly. I absolutely love this album, as we know, but I wouldn't put it in the same vein as Thriller or Dark Side of the Moon or Nevermind the Bollocks. Yeah. It's not that iconic, but they are iconic albums.
Close.
Different level.
Yeah, very close. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's close, but you're probably right. Though,
it's close.
Not quite. Yeah.
I can understand people not liking Pink Floyd in the rock and metal world. They're a bit old school and old fashioned and that, but I mean, you can't deny Dave Gilmour's guitaring and songwriting for me. I mean, not everything that Pink Floyd have done is brilliant, but a lot of it is. So.
Good choice, mate. Another interesting choice. What you got, Mark?
Well, before we went live, I asked if live albums were acceptable or were in play, and you gave me the green light for that. So I've shown this one before, and I'll show it again.
Darren absolutely loves that cover there.
I love it.
This is the very first rock album I ever bought. I bought some novelty shit when I was a kid, but my very first rock album was Kiss Alive 2. Every song on this album, the live versions of these songs sound so much better than the studio version.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, that's not the truth. A lot of bands, the live versions just don't sound as good as the studio. But for instance, God of Thunder on this goes to a whole nother level over the studio version. The studio version I really can't even listen to anymore. It's slow, it's distorted, it just doesn't play well to my ears. The live version is a whole nother animal. Every song on this album I love. The 5 new bonus tracks that they added, the new studio tracks that they added, 4 of the 5 are great songs. This is the album that changed my life, and if I was stuck on a desert island, I would want this album with me.
What year is that, Mark? 70?
I believe it was 76. So I can see.
I think you're right.
It had to be 76. Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
First came out.
That Destroyer tour then.
Yeah. This came out after Destroyer.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Great pictures.
Great pictures. The gate. That just takes me to another place when I look at
quality. Yeah.
Stunning. You know what? Lee and I obviously both run YouTube channels, and visuals to even Neil. It's boring YouTuber stuff, but click-through rates on thumbnails and that kind of stuff. Visuals are extremely important to get somebody to engage with your product, be that a YouTube video or an album. And Mark, can we just have one more look at the front cover? because that is stunning. Look at that. No, I mean, if that's a YouTube thumbnail, you're clicking it. You know what I mean? It's just it's beautiful. The colors, the black background, all of it, everything inside. We know it's great, but I just love that sleeve cover. I just think it's great.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great cover. Okay, Good one, mate. Good one. What you got there, Darren?
I'm going with another classic, and I brought them up last night, but only as my honorable mentions, but not this album. I'm going with Fleetwood Mac Rumours from 1977, one of my favorite albums of all time, and not just because of the sonic material. It's how the album came together, the breakups, the drugs, the arguments that everyone's sleeping with everyone in this band around this particular time. Stevie Nicks, second album with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham after the Peter Green era of Fleetwood Mac. So it's their second album. But they're in their relationship is toxic, and out of that toxic relationship comes some of the most beautiful music you've ever heard in your life. It's every album you could listen. It's not a concept album, but you could go through this album that you can hear the arguments. So you've got like Lindsay on the first track singing Secondhand News, and he's talking about Stevie, you're out of here, I'm done with you. The next one is her singing, and written by her, Dreams, where she's arguing back with him, and it's your fault. No, it's your fault. It's that kind of stuff. Separately, then you've got Christine and John McVie, who are going through a marriage breakup themselves. She's got songs like Songbird, what's the name of the other one? You Make Love and Fun, where she's talking about her new boyfriend, and she's singing about her new boyfriend on it. There's something in here for everyone. There's ballads, and there's kind of pop rock, and it's just everything, a whole package with it, Lee, that goes around it. Just how the album came together and the material inside. I love it.
It's funny, isn't it? Because this can happen either way with bands when there's turmoil or there's drugs, and you can either get something that's the best thing they've done, or you can get the opposite. It can do either, can't it? But obviously in that case, a good one. So great choice, mate.
That's another one, Darren. That a classic album is actually really good, isn't it? Rumours is known to be their classic album, and you obviously love it as well. So it fits in with that nicely.
Absolutely. Just one other thing. I mentioned very briefly last night Tango in the Night, and you said yes to that, Jam.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
I would have never picked you as a Fleetwood Mac fan. That's incredible.
Well, I wouldn't say a fan, but I mean, a lot of my albums, and some of the ones one of the ones today actually is one from my childhood, and my mum and dad played it, and I just remember it, And there's other ones I won't mention now because we'll probably come on to them. Probably a lot of it's to be a childhood, isn't it? When you grow up,
it is. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Definitely. Right. Okay. So I did say I was whether I said it before the program or during it, I don't know. I'm gonna try and pick some different music for probably how I'm feeling. So it's not all the same style. So I'm gonna go a bit heavier on this one. I'm going to go to 1986, Metallica, Master of Puppets.
Oh, what an album.
And the funny thing with this album was, for me, it was too heavy when it first came out, because I was right in the bang of the 80s and thinking, what is this all about? I like White Lion. I like Def Leppard. I like, I'm into all this sort of stuff. And I was like, Metallica, it's all like, whoa, that's how it sounded like to me back then. And then it just got me, about a year after or so I've come out, and it's just grown and grown and grown. And this is the Metallica album. I must have heard these songs. I don't know how many times, but when you're putting the title track on, you just can't help. You're like that in the car. It's just absolutely mental. Absolutely love the album, and it hasn't honestly it still feels fresh, and the production is just so. It's got so much bass there in it, even in them guitars, in that tone of that guitar, it just feels like it's, like a chainsaw near enough. Absolutely brilliant. What was you going to say, Darren?
Just going to say another great cover, another great sleeve cover. I love it.
Oh yeah. So I've got my metal one, my classic metal so far with Dio.
Did you see? Did you see them play it down though when they played the whole of Master of Puppets? I think it must have been an anniversary. I don't think it was 2016, so I reckon it must have been 5 years earlier. It must have been 2011. They played the whole of Master of Puppets.
I started going to download when I broke free of my ex-wife, and then I started going to download every year. Other than that, I went to download when I was like 16 years old. Once, it was called Monsters of Rock then, and that I saw Metallica then.
Yes,
On the-
I did. 1990. Yeah.
Yeah, so they was with
91,
Anthrax.
sorry, 91.
No, well, no, I saw him in 80. It was the Master of Puppets.
86, yeah.
Yeah. So I saw him with Bon Jovi were headlining. Master Metallica were there. Anthrax, Wasp. What a classic. Cinderella.
Great lineup, yeah.
Cinderella and Dio.
Oh,
And Dio.
oh,
I mean, come on. So, yeah, and they were great. They had a really bad sound, but the crowd went absolutely mental because it was just totally different at that time. So, yeah, Master of Puppets, Metallica, absolutely
Good shout.
superb.
Marvellous.
There you go.
great show.
Right, okay, Jan, what you got?
Yeah, I'm sticking with Mark's live album, but I'm going completely opposite to Pink Floyd. I'm going Ramones and Loco Live.
Check you out.
Now, the Ramones are not to everybody's taste, but weirdly, because it's sort of like, you know, everybody wears Ramones t-shirts, everyone has Misfits t-shirts on, but never actually ever listened to them. It's
Or
almost like a
Nirvana,
fashion
or
thing.
Nirvana and Guns N' Roses.
Exactly, yeah. And even when I was at school, people were wearing Ramones t-shirts, and I would see them. I was thinking, who the fuck are the Ramones? I've never heard of them. There's no Wikipedia, don't forget, in 90s or 80s, 90s. I don't know who Ramones are. So, but my mate bought Ramones Loco Live on tape, and I thought, I've got to listen to this band. Everybody wears the t-shirts on. Absolutely blown away by it. It's so fast. Every song is like 2 minutes long. So I've said before, if you don't like it, the next song comes along in about 10 seconds. So, but I mean, every
That's a good
song is
show.
fantastic and so fast. And I was actually shocked when I actually went back and bought the albums, the studio albums, about how much slower the songs were in actual vinyl, you know, on the recording. So so I love every song on this album. There's actually 2 versions of it, which I found bizarre, because the one I grew up with, and I bought it on CD a few years later, and it's like, this is I don't remember that song being on there, and apparently there's 2 different versions of it, and this one's got both versions in, but yeah, 2 different set lists and completely different versions. But mine was the Chrysalis version, if anyone wants to listen to it.
Yeah.
Brilliant album. Some great songs. Somebody Put Something in My Drink, you know, Psychotherapy, Brain Is Hanging Upside Down, all these songs, classics. I love Ramones.
Cool. Excellent, mate.
Very cool choice.
Right, Mark, what you got, mate?
All right, I'm going to follow your lead and go a little heavier on this one. Maybe not quite as heavy as Metallica. But we're going Iced Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Something Wicked This Way Comes. I had a hard time picking which Iced Earth album to pick to take with me. Glorious Burden, I've often said, might be my favorite Iced Earth album, but as I got to analyzing the songs, there are more bangers on this one from start to finish. Glorious Burden does have a couple of weaker songs that don't rate as high with me, but this one from start to finish,
The great album, man.
blows me away. Yeah, they were hungry at this time. They were at the top of their game. It's heavy but very melodic at the same time. They really walk that fine line between thrash and more traditional metal. They can do both.
Yeah.
As we talked about before, John Schaefer's rhythm guitar is just mind blowing, and he really brings these songs together. Whether it's the more ballady type heavy ballads that they did, or the full blown thrashers, they knocked it out of the park with this.
We talk about guitar tone. Let's talk about Metallica as well. I mean, they've got a guitar tone and a half like Iced Earth. It's really hits you. It really gets you in the chest. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, love Iced Earth, man. I've got into him more and more. And he's out of jail.
Yeah.
For how long, we don't know. But
Yeah.
Is that bail, or has he been charges dropped?
He's out on bail.
I think he's agreed to drop some evidence on some other people, and
Yeah.
Oh, he's a grass. He's a grass.
he's probably going to serve some time. I don't know. But
I don't care as long as we get some new music. I don't really give a fuck.
that's all I think about.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Good choice, mate. Absolutely brilliant. So, Darren, what you got, mate?
You know, I ordered the album that I'm going to bring up next, and for this video, and it hasn't arrived, so I was a bit disappointed about that.
Oh,
But I want it anyway, so I'll have it. But I'll use this to illustrate. You know, no matter how far I try to run away from it and try to like put out something a bit different, I can't get away from Jimmy Jamison and Survivor. I just can't get away from it. Obviously, I love that album, but it's not this one I'm talking about. It's the one that came after that one. 1986 is Survivors When Seconds Count.
Yeah.
Jimmy Jamison, I've said it enough times on your channel, Lee. He is my second favorite singer of all time. Another man that was taken too early. He died in 2014. So if you ever watch him in interviews, just so understated and such a gentleman, and just the kind of guy that you'd go, like this group, you come on, you go for a pint with him, Really, really, really nice, soft-spoken guy. But sixth album, Survivor's sixth album and second one with Jimmy Jamison, and it has everything on it. It's ballads, it's got rockers, it's AOR. It's just, I've been listening to it for the last couple of days in the car and making a show of myself driving through my local town. Teenagers are looking, going, who is that 39-year-old man with his arm out the window listening to AOR? You've got How Much Love, Man Against the World, Rebel Son, which is an absolute belter of a track, and Backstreet Love Affair, which is a kind of a deep album track on this. I'm obsessed with Jimmy Jamison, and I'm obsessed with this era of Survivor. When Seconds Count, 1986.
Did you hear the solo album he made? It was probably about 10 years ago now. Eric Martinson out of Eclipse wrote it for him.
Yeah, I did listen to that. Yeah,
really had that Survivor sound as well. You would love that. Yeah. Absolutely love that, mate. Yeah. No, he's got a great voice.
It disappoints me that he's so well known for the Baywatch team. He's better than that, it's so annoying. But anyway.
So Dan, did he die suddenly? Because I remember Survivor were booked in to play at Rock City. Not I was going to say, I'm not personally a fan. I haven't really listened to him, but I just remember seeing they were playing at Rock City. I thought, that's interesting, Survivor. And then he died, and obviously it was cancelled. Was it sudden thing, or was he
cancer?
Oh, so I guess not that sudden. But,
No, well, I don't know how long between his diagnosis and when he died, but they did bring him and the singer back before Vital Signs, the one that done the first three albums, Dave Bickler. They brought both of them back, which was a really cool idea to have both of them on stage, and both were getting to sing and stuff, which is quite rare. You don't see that too often. I know Lou Graham came back to Foreigner a while ago, and he sang a few songs on tour with them for a few gigs, but it was really cool to go back and look at the footage of Bickler and Jamison on stage. I prefer Jamison, but Bickler's great as well. But When Seconds Count, I'd say, what? I know you're not a fan, Jan, but I'd say listen to Rebel Son from When Seconds Count. Just a great song. Great song.
Cool. I want it.
Great choice, mate. Great choice. Okay, so Metallica was out in 1986. I'm going to go to 1986 again. So Tesla, Mechanical Resonance. Oh man, I mean, Darren, you heard Changes, didn't you, mate, from Tesla for this album?
Yeah.
I fell in love with this album when it came out, and I still love it now. It's the best album they've done. This is real rock and roll, isn't it? This is rock and roll at its best. These guys were so different. And like I said, middle of the 80s, all the makeup, everyone had the makeup and the hair all up here. And Tesla came out with his jeans and T-shirts on and just rocked out. But it was so catchy at the same time. Man, they were just brilliant. And I managed to get to see them, like I've said a few times, a few years ago, probably about 5 years ago now, and they were just as good. Jeff Keef's an amazing singer. Frank Hannon's an amazing guitarist. And the whole band are just brilliant. And it blew me away. It's so much energy in that debut album. It's just a classic album, and it never gets old. Tesla Mechanical Resonance, 1986.
No, great album.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know when you saw him, but when I saw him, I think Jeff Keith, the singer, I'm sure he's taking oxygen at the side of the stage. I don't know if he was just a one-off or he needs it all the time, but it wasn't great to see.
No. I mean, he was pretty lively because when he's on stage, he's a bit like, I suppose you could say he's a bit like Mick Jagger. He's very sort of like dancey, and he sort of dances around and stuff. But no, he's pretty good. His voice has got a little bit squeakier as he's got older, I'd say. He's obviously, back then he would just belt songs out like they were, like it was nothing. A real rawness to his voice as well. But Tesla, man, they're one of my favourite bands. Always have been. And Mechanical Resonance could be the perfect album, I think. I reckon it could be all the way through. Absolutely brilliant. There you go. Right. Okay. Back for another round. Round 4. Jam.
Right, another left field one, and probably won't see this one come. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but it's Jeff Wayne and his musical version of War of the Worlds.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
And you'd love the artwork on here. I mean, look at that for a picture.
I'll tell you what. This is weird. This is weird. My missus was talking about this album 2 nights ago. She loves this album. Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic, and it's another childhood memory. You know, growing up, my parents used to play it. I mean, if you don't know it, it's Richard Burton is the narrator of the story. Obviously, it's 1978. Obviously, it's old. He's the narrator. Justin Hayward from Moody Blues plays the voice of the thoughts of the journalist, if you like. And you've got David Essex is in it. He's the artilleryman, and he sings a song. And Phil Lynott is the Father Nathaniel, and he sings a song on it as well.
I ain't being funny or anything, Jam, but if I was on a desert island on my own, that would fucking shit me up, that album. Why the fuck would you want to be there on your own listening to that? Fuck yeah.
I don't know. I find it uplifting.
Oh man, it scares me. It scares me, that album, honestly.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant album, though.
Are you two guys familiar with it?
I'm not. No.
Oh mate, Darren, you would love it. You would love it.
Yeah,
I'm just listening to Jam talk there, and I'm there. That would be right up my street.
You would absolutely love it. It's progressive hard rock, isn't it? It's just sing-alongable songs. I mean, Forever Autumn's a classic. Obviously, Eve of the War, you probably heard that one. You might have heard that one. Thunderchild, Brave New World. They're just classic songs. Have you heard this, Mark, at all?
I have not.
You guys are in for a treat. It's a double album, and it's fantastic. It's a story, obviously, of War of the World, H.G. Wells, War of the Worlds. And say Richard Burton's on it. I mean, what more do you want?
Did they play part of this on the radio years ago? And then everyone thought there was a real alien invasion.
Oh no, I think it was this story, but it was Orson Welles, I think, was reading it out from the H.G. Wells book.
Oh right.
I don't think it was actually the musical version, because this was in the 50s, I think, in the 50s or 60s. So I think the book's probably 100 years. I don't know when H.G. Wells died, but a long time ago. So
you know what? It's Sunday afternoons. We're recording this on a Sunday. Sunday afternoons are my PlayStation couple of hours, so that will be going in my ear. I'll
tell you what, Darren, I know for a fact you will love it. I bet you love this album.
Yeah, well, you will end up reviewing it without a doubt, mate.
Yeah, do it for a review. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. That's another one you got to do.
Let me work on the Queen's White one, which I'm at the moment. So.
Right. Okay. Cool. Right, Mark.
This one might be a bit of a shock because this is a very new album.
It ain't Whitney Houston, is it?
No, not Whitney Houston.
All right.
Not that big of a shock.
Oh my God! Let it go.
But anyway, this album has only been out a very short time, but in the very short time it's been out, I think it's going to go down as one of my favorite albums. 10 years from now, I don't know how it's going to hold up, but as of right now, Durbin. The Beast Awakens. I know Lee's heard it. I don't know if either you other guys have heard it, but this is like old school metal. Jam, I'm pretty sure you would like it. It's got.
I saw Lee's review of it. One of the songs, I think. And I put on
tinges of even Halloween type stuff.
Yeah.
It's got that European power metal vibe to it.
This without a doubt, mate. This without a doubt has got the best choruses.
Yeah.
I've heard for years. Okay. The most catchy choruses you would ever hear. Honestly. Yeah. Brilliant album.
I agree.
Yeah. He was the X Factor fella or something, was he? Or American Idol, that's it.
American Idol, come on!
Daughtry, man. Daughtry.
Great choice, mate.
Right now, it's very fresh. 10 years from now, I may think otherwise, but as of right now, I don't think I'd mind being stranded with this.
That's interesting.
It's got so many, honestly, Jam, the sing-along choruses on that album.
I'll get that one. I'll get it, yeah. It's hard for me to put a modern CD on because I don't have that much time to listen to stuff anymore. You know, I'm usually used to listen to stuff before I went to the gig. You know, rehearsing, revising if it was for the next gig. Obviously, that's all stopped now, so I don't get to listen to too much new stuff and get that much of opinion on new stuff anymore. Really,
the thing is, there's no risk. There's no risk anymore, is there? Now you can go and listen to that on YouTube now and turn it up and go, yeah, all right, I'll get that. You know, but
it's like what I've been saying before. When I used to save up, and my whole week's wages when I had a paper round every day went on one album and you had to like it, you know, or didn't like it. If you did, you were stuck with it. You know what I mean? None of that anymore, is it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No. Right. Okay. Great choice, Mark. Nice to see a new album making it. That's great. Yeah. Okay. That's this year's album.
Yeah.
Okay, Darren, what you got?
You know, it's funny that Jam said earlier on that, you know, it's some of it was listening to music in, you know, from your parents, you know, in the car or whatever it might have been. I think subconsciously I've done that on my list, starting with Queen. Next up, I've got Eagles, One of These Nights, 1975. Right, so that's kind of what I'm getting at is that do I like this because I independently like this, or do I like this because I've grown up on it? You know, so, but I know as a grown man, I love it, and I look back in it fondly, and I still listen to the Eagles. But One of These Nights would be, out of their collection of albums, if I couldn't have their greatest hits, this is the one that I would have, because it's a great lineup. You got Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Randy Meisner, Bernie Leadon, Don Felder, almost kind of a classic lineup of the Eagles. 9 songs, so quite a breezy album, and you know, as we know, I like that. The big ones on this are kind of One of These Nights. You've got Lion Eyes, and you have what I think is my favorite Eagles song of all time, sang by Randy Meisner, Take It to the Limit, which has the best 40 seconds of a song, as it just keeps going on and on and on and on, and I can just keep listening to it. If they made that ending 9 minutes long, I just keep listening to it.
I don't mind the Eagles, actually. I've said that before. They're all right. I quite like some of the Eagles stuff. So, no, it's good, mate. Excellent. Okay, well, you can tell 1986 is popular with me because this is the third album from 1986 for me.
Jeez.
I know. So, this blew my mind. It still does now. It was so far ahead of its time. It's Queensryche and Rage for Order. So, I mean, I know that there's another album, you know, that you can't really not talk about, the one that Darren's promising he's going to review. But Rage for Order, it just gives me something else. It is just, every song is just perfect. And I think why I've chosen this is because within that album, Operation Mindcrime, there's a certain feel across the whole album in there because it's a concept, obviously, and there's a certain style to all the songs, the way they link together. But I think with Rage for Order, you get so many different styles. I mean, you get that, I know it's a cover, You've Got to Get Close to You. That, what a weird song, but brilliant cover version that is. Walk in the Shadows, Mark, one of your favourite songs ever, isn't it? Walk in the Shadows. You got I Remember at the end of the album, that acoustic song with Jeff Tate just doing that brilliant vocal over it. The whole album is just absolutely perfect, and it's almost futuristic sounding as well. It's like technology sort of taking over, if you like. It's really weird. It blew my mind. It when I was a kid at 15 or 16 years old, when I first heard this, I thought, what the hell is that? But I fell in love with it instantly at that age, and I still love it now. It's so fresh still now. Production's brilliant as well. It sounds so good. It could just be brought out now. Absolutely amazing. Rage for Order, Queensryche, 1986.
Sure.
Cool.
A lot of variety on that one for sure.
Variety for sure. And I think that sometimes gives it that freshness where you can, the variety on an album. You know, it's all metal, progressive as well, but there's so much variety in each song. So, okay.
Cool.
We're coming back to the last album, well, of round one anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. What you got, Jan? You surprised me so far, mate. You've got to end it on a, you know, are we going to have something we were thinking you might have? It's got to be a bit of a common, like, you know, I reckon this is not going to be such a surprise, this one.
No, this is more mainstream, and weirdly coincidental. I picked out 5 of my, I had 8, I didn't know how many we were doing. And this is the one I thought I'd talk about today. And it just comes directly onto yours. But it's not the one we thought it might be. It's Queensryche. And it's not Operation Mindcrime, it's Empire.
Oh, it's a great album, yeah.
From 1990. I mean, it's weird that we've both gone through not Operation Mindcrime after all that, but
well, we have got round
I love
2.
it,
We have got round 2. There's nothing
Yeah,
to say you can't have 2 albums, is there? So
Absolutely.
I mean,
exactly. Yeah. I think I've said before, Empire is actually my favourite Queensryche album. I think I love Operation Mindcrime. Don't get me wrong, but I think Empire is absolutely fantastic. The production is I'm not a big thing on production, but the production on it is absolutely breathtaking. For you listen to it on the CD, it sounds like it's bloody. It's for the time, 1990. It doesn't sound, it's the best thing I've ever heard, listened to probably on the stereo. It's absolutely brilliant. And some of the songs on it, it just sounds like, for me, there's like Jet City Woman to Della Brown to Another Rainy Night. It just sounds like a soundscape of just atmosphere and songs, and they all blend into some great songs. I mean, let alone Empire, the title track, which is fantastic. And Silent Lucidity, I still don't get bored of that. I absolutely love that. It's probably one of my favourite ballads that's ever been written. And for me, I think it's definitely the most consistent album they've done, and definitely my favourite. And if Darren wants to do a sequel to his Operation Mindcrime, definitely do Empire next.
But to tell you the truth, I mean, I know we're banging on about Operation Mindcrime because it's such a classic album, and it means so much to a lot of metal fans. But Darren, you without a doubt would like Empire the most.
Yeah, I think you like it more.
I'm literally typing in it. I'm literally typing in a note here for myself.
Because they sort of bridged the gap more with they got a little bit more commercial, but not too much. It was still heavy sort of music, but there was choruses all over that one there. Like you said, Another Rainy Night, Jet City Woman. Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing album.
I love it. I mean, that keyboardy bit, the start of Best I Can, the first song. I just love that. And it just goes, what an album that is. It's I presume Mark likes that as well. You like Empire. Yeah.
Okay, great choice, mate. Great choice. Right, Mark, what you got, mate? Last one.
All right, this is going to be kind of a deep pick. Cornerstone, Human Stain. No, Lee has listened to some of this. I don't know if he listened to the entire album or not. Doogie White is the vocalist, probably my number 2 favorite singer. This is one of those near perfect albums to me. I love every song on it. There's not a song on it that I would skip. Very rainbowish. This kind of sounds like it could have been the sequel to the Rainbow album that Doogie did, Stranger in Us All. The songs have a lot of the same vibe, but it's actually, this album's actually more, I like it better than the Rainbow album, actually. It's so catchy. You want to talk about catchy choruses, this one's just full of them. The bass player is the bass player for a band called Royal Hunt. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that.
Yeah, they're more like progressive, aren't they? Sort of progressive.
Dean Morgan's his name.
Yeah.
They had a guitarist that I've never heard of before or after named Casper Damgard, and he's just incredible. But again, this is another one of those, I don't want to say projects because they did 4 albums, but one of those bands that should have been huge. They just came a little too late. If they'd have came out in the 80s, they probably would have been huge. Very melodic, but heavy at the same time. Just incredible album. I definitely would not mind being stranded with this one.
Did that come out just after the Rainbow one then, or was it a few years later?
This one came out, let's see, it was in the early 2000s. I don't remember what year, but yeah, it was after Rainbow.
Yeah, and what was that, 94, something like that? Stranger in Us All? Don't know exactly.
I'll tell you here in a minute. I think it was actually 2001.
Oh, was that? All right, okay, a lot later.
2002. Yeah, 2002.
No, you've only got another 5 years, and they can bring another album out, Rainbow, can't they?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I wish they would do another one. They did 3 pretty quick succession. Yeah. The first Cornerstone album, Doogie sang on it, but he had no input in it. It was already written, and it's very mellow, not really hard rock at all, almost AOR type stuff. Wasn't real good, but he had full involvement with this one, and then the other two that followed. And this is my favorite, but the other two were excellent as well.
Stuff.
Right, mate. Great choice. Right, Darren, what's your last album for your Desert Island discs? What you got, mate?
Well, you know what? As we know, I'm the uncoolest on these videos, and I have absolutely no shame about that.
Listen, I actually think you're the coolest. You turn up late. You got your sunglasses on. I mean, you are. You ride around in your car with Survivor on. I mean, how cool there you go.
Yeah, cool in my head at that point. You know, I'm gonna go with an album from 1984. I'm going with Bryan Adams, Reckless. I'm a big Bryan Adams fan.
I like it, man. It's a good album, yeah, definitely.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah. Bryan Adams, I love at this point in his career that partnership he had with Jim Valance. I mentioned him last night. I think it must be something on a certain wave that you just know what you like, because Jim Valance and Bryan Adams wrote a couple of songs. One of my pretty much my favorite song from Creatures of the Night a couple of years earlier from Kiss. They co-wrote Rock and Roll Hell and War Machine. Both Bryan Adams and Jim Valance wrote them songs with Kiss. And then 2 years later, Bryan comes up with Reckless, his fourth album, I think it was. But you've got so many great soft rock songs in here. You know, you've got One Night Love Affair, Run to You, which I just think is a bit of man cheating on his wife and running to his mistress. You know, you got Run to You, good, really, really good rocker in that. You've got the ballads like Heaven, but then straight after Heaven, we're talking about the sequencing of an album. You're sitting under that tree again, you know, you're going from Run to You to Heaven, you're getting a ballad, and then you're going back on side one. He's going to another rocker called Something, which is just a great song. You've got one which I'll skip over very quickly, even on the Desert Island, even though I have nothing to do, I won't listen to Summer of '69. But I certainly will listen to Kids Want to Rock after that. And then you've got a great duet with Tina Turner, It's Only Love. So great album. I just think Jim and Bryan, whether it's writing for other artists at this time period or for themselves, they were really on the crest of a wave. And that would be one for me, Reckless.
Is that Mutt Lang? Didn't Mutt Lang work with?
Did Mutt produce that? That's a good question. I tell you now.
I think Mutt did some stuff with him. I might not be that
Check
one.
my notes. No, Mutt didn't produce it actually. Bryan Adams, Bob Clearmountain.
Yeah,
with Bryan Adams. So no, was it? Yeah. You're right though. It does sound quite Mutt, doesn't it? It has got that vibe.
Yeah, good choice, mate. I like a bit of Bryan Adams, especially then. You know, back then, I think he done some good albums then. Right, okay. So my last choice, and obviously I've been going through the years and going oldest to the newest. So, I mean, it is quite a long time ago now, 2010. So, Alter Bridge and AB3, the third album from Alter Bridge. So, I mean, they are a brilliant band. I think this was them at their peak. I mean, their last couple of albums, I'm not saying they're bad, they're very good, but this is when I think they were at their, you know, they had most ideas. They were sort of like, they bridged that gap. They got heavier, like from the first album through to Blackbird, the second album. This one was sort of a perfect balance of catchiness, but it was quite deep, quite a dark album. They were going through a bit of a rough patch, apparently. So it was quite a dark sounding album. But I just think it is absolutely excellent. It's heavy, but melodic. There's a load of really great ballads on here as well. Their best songwriting, without a doubt. I did a ranking of their albums, and I did it when I first started the channel. It was my first video. Jan, you sent me something today. It was my first video. It was Alter Bridge ranking the albums, and I never used to do this weird thing about looking at each track. I just think, I like that album the best, so I just put that as my number one album. But then I was going to do the ranking again with someone like my mate who's a massive Alter Bridge fan, and I thought, I'll do it again and I'll go for each track. And it turned out my top album again, each track. So it is definitely through both thinking it is and going through each track. It's still my favourite Alter Bridge album. So it's not everyone's because Fortress and Blackbird usually are, but absolutely brilliant. And also feel guilty because I've just had a go at Miles Kennedy's new solo album saying it ain't no good. So, I mean, that's a bit of guilt there. It ain't no guilt. It is an absolutely superb album. Love it. So that's my more modern album, I suppose. Might get even more modern on our second round in a few weeks or whatever. But that's it. That's my Desert Island albums, guys. My first five to be followed. I really enjoyed it actually because there was huge surprises, really different styles of music, which is really good, isn't it? So
Lee, I just wanted to say you have come so far since that first video.
I know. I watched it a little bit of it. I couldn't actually watch it all. What Jam sent to me, it was really bad.
No, Lee, I'm with you on that.
You were so nervous. I mean, you could tell you were as nervous as a damn cat on a hot tin roof.
Oh mate, ain't good. I mean,
Lee, it's tricky, isn't it? As a YouTuber, because I nearly for every video I'm uploading now, I'm trying to hide previous ones. That kind of way. That just don't, I just don't feel they fit the standard. That kind of way now, and it's kind of. But you've got to learn, and you've got to. It is funny to go back and watch your first ones because I've hidden at least 20 odd videos because they're borderline unwatchable. But you're just learning, and you're getting.
Well, I mean, for a 20-minute video, for 15 minutes of it, I'm going.
I still do that.
But even as guests coming on here, I mean, obviously you get nervous when you're doing it just as being on a guest on it. You know what I mean? You're going to write off something to say, and I didn't have any notes when I first did something with Lee, then particularly, and you find yourself getting caught sometimes, don't you? But,
yeah. Especially if you lose your notes. Anyway, guys, listen, it's been absolutely superb having you guys on as well. Really enjoyed it as usual. And that's round one out of the way. Maybe we'll get together, I don't know, in a week or so when we're all off. And we do round two. You up for that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, why don't everyone just put some of their suggestions? Like, what would you want to be if you was on a desert island? Obviously, remember the technical things we got going. We've got a solar panelled, don't know, Spotify player or whatever. I don't know. And the 5 albums. Name 5 this time, and then save 5 for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great having you on, guys. Thank you very much. See you next time.
See you guys.
Laters.